Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Midweek Program at the J.C. Raulston Arboretum. My name is Blake, and I'm the Education Assistant here at the Arboretum, and today we are in Mark's office because, well, we've got a whole bunch of things in here that Mark has collected from all over the world, including a bunch of plants, because we have a program for you today where our Director Mark Weathington, he's going to be talking about packing for plant collecting. He's going to go into all the things you need when you go on an expedition looking for new plants, as well as all the things you need to know beforehand before you go do that so that you can be successful in your plant collecting, as well as actually getting them back into the country. You know, minor detail. Those of you watching this on YouTube, please like this video and subscribe to our channel, and feel free to leave a comment down below. And with the announcements out of the way, I will pass things over to Mark to teach us how to pack for a plant collecting expedition.
All right. Thank you very much, Blake. Love it. Love it. Yeah, this is something that I've been asked to do before, and I did it kind of once in this way where I actually had my suitcase with me for a group of other botanic gardens in the area. We have other great gardens around here, the Sarah P. Duke Gardens, the NC Botanic Gardens, us at J.C. Raulston Arboretum, our partners at Juniper Level Botanic Garden, and we try to get together once a year with staff, and we get together with some of the volunteers from each garden at one of the gardens hosting every year. And so we did this for the volunteers one time, and really people were interested. And we always talk about going and collecting plants, and we talk about the plants we collect, and we talk about the funny stories of, you know, sliding down muddy hills and collecting in the rain and doing all kinds of things like that and eating weird foods. But really, nobody kind of ever talks about the nuts and bolts of what does it take to actually to do that. What do you need to bring with you? I'm not going to get into, you can't just go anywhere and collect things. You can't go into our national parks here in the U.S. and just collect things, whether you're from America or somewhere else. You have to have permissions, usually have partners with other institutions in the country. So that's a whole separate thing. But I recently was in Vietnam doing some collecting and some work with the Institute for Biological and Ecological Resources of the Vietnamese Academy of Sciences. So with some of the folks there, and we thought it might be interesting for people to see, how do I pack to go and do this kind of thing? So we literally have my suitcase for when I go. Now, I am not going to talk about what I pack that I might pack to go anywhere on any trip around the world. That's all the same, you know, clothes, you know, chargers, toothbrush, whatever it might be. That's a separate thing. That's, you know, anybody can tell you that. Although I will tell you this, as somebody who does not like to pack a lot of stuff, if you're going to be staying at halfway decent places, not in the wilds of Vietnam, but it's usually relatively cheap to have them wash your clothes. And instead of packing one of everything or spending time in, you know, Europe or something, washing your clothes in the sink and hanging them around your room, you know, I just plan on letting them wash them a couple times, and it's the cost of a decent dinner to do that, and boom, it's easy. All right, but that aside, let's look at what I take. Now, so I always bring a suitcase that is just for collecting. And really, my suitcase is kind of a, you know, we laugh that it's like a go bag, at least parts of it. So, other pro tip with my clothes and stuff, I'm a big fan of the cubes and those kinds of things, little packing things. They're great. Keep me organized. But when I'm packing, I will pack one bag for all my stuff. I'll have my carry-on will usually be whatever I'm going to use out in the field. I'm obviously, when I'm going out in the field collecting, I'm not going to take my suitcase, but this I'll have, you know, my neck brace, pillow, and, you know, things like that, books or whatever I want to read on the plane. And then I'll start, when I get to the hotel the first night, I will load this for collecting and put my other things in here. So what do I bring? I'm going to start with what I bring for going out in the field, and then we're going to switch over to what I have for when I bring the plants back to wherever I'm going to be packing them and cleaning them. The hotel room sometimes, a research station. It's really nice. Like with Vietnam, we some of that we can do at a research station, which is great. Now you're going to see a lot of bags. When you're out collecting in the wild, you need bags. I use Ziploc bags. I especially like the Ziploc bags, the ones with the zipper on them in the field. This is where we find a plant, we dig up a little piece of it, knock some of the soil off, and throw it in the bag. And we'll talk a little bit more about the collecting part as well as to kind of illustrate some of the packing we do. I always bring a waterproof. This is this you could take canoeing and, fill it up and tie it down, and it'll, you follow the canoe and it'll float down the river or whatever. I almost never use it, but I always have it. Occasionally you'll go out and it'll just be like a monsoon for days and days, and you're there. You got to go out and you got to. And so sometimes I'll do that, and you can put, your phone and, notes and anything that's really going to get destroyed in that. It's just a little bit heavier duty than like throwing it in a Ziploc bag, because it won't get punctured and that sort of thing. All right, speaking of rainproof, I like the waterproof paper, right in the rain types. These are, good for, you got to take notes on everything you're collecting in the field. If you don't have notes, it's not quite as useful. So take down where you collected it, what you were doing, what kind of site it was. Was it wet? Was it dry? Was it the sunny spot? Was it, what was it growing with? We try to capture as much of that as possible. So having that in something that you can write on when it's raining, or I'm a sweater. Not a knitted sweater, but like I sweat. I come from a sweaty people. And when I am out in the field, I put my notebook in my pocket, front pocket, back pocket, shirt pocket. I'm trying to write on it. I am dripping wet when I'm somewhere like Vietnam, whether it's raining or not. So having something that's you can write on with a pencil. New discovery for me. I never thought about it. I picked up a mechanical pencil that was hanging around my house one time to bring, and I don't know where it came from, but instead of being the 0.5 whatever millimeter, millimeter, it was 0.7 millimeter.
Okay.
And it didn't break all the time, and it was really dark. And I mean, it was great. And that was the most exciting discovery for everybody on the trip. Was they were like, "What is that pencil you're using? That's awesome. That is so good." I was like, yeah, who knew? I'm going to get a 1.0 next time.
No
really. All right. Another thing I always like to have, not that when you have a partner in the other country, you don't need to do your own navigating necessarily. Now, I've been to places where I've been driving myself and did need those, but I'm a person who has to see on a map where I am to have a real understanding of where I'm collecting. I'm very visual. Here in Raleigh, if I didn't look at a map, I wouldn't be able to tell you where I lived. I'd be able to tell you that I was, 15 minutes away from the Arboretum, but knowing, after looking back, I'm 15 minutes northwest of the Arboretum. And so I was listening to something just this morning on a podcast, and they were talking about something in North Carolina, and I didn't know where the town was, Cherryville, so I had to look it up. But these kind of maps are great. It's a great conversation piece with the in-country folks you're with, because you can spread it out during lunch or during a dinner or at a campsite if you're out camping, and you can say, all right, I know we started here, Oh, so where are we now? What's this mountain? And they'll show you, and they'll show you how we drove, and they'll say, this is a really rich spot, but where there's a lot of really unusual, rare things, but we can't go there. That's a national park that we can't get permits to collect in, and whatever. And they'll start talking about where they came from and all that kind of thing, and give you a little bit more of a sense of the whole country. And it makes for easy conversation because, I have basically zero Vietnamese language ability. My collaborators have very good English, but a lot of times I know it can get tiresome speaking in another language. And so having something visual to really help with the communication just helps break things up. And it's great, especially when you're with new people and you don't know, it's hard to ask them if they've watched, the latest episode of what I should say.
You looked at me as if I watched TV.
I watch TV. I just don't know I watch what my wife watches.
There it is.
So, what else do we have in here? All right, we'll get to some of this other stuff in a minute. More bags, lots of bags. Run out of bags often. So these bags are what I usually use for the wild collecting when I'm going out in the field. I would probably, in reality, I would take these out of the box and throw a rubber band around them. But I actually, like I do when I go collecting, took these out of our house. So unlike when I go collecting, I will put these back so I didn't take them out of the box and make them a little bit tighter. So my wife won't be upset with me. First aid type stuff. Things for blisters, bandages, wraps for being sprained, lotions and cream for, chafing or whatever it is. All super, super helpful to have. I do travel with people who always travel with duct tape as well, which is a great first aid thing. It's also great for if you grab something and it has little prickles that come off in your hand, the duct tape will pull that off. Also, and I don't know if I think I used it all up or maybe it was bad. Super glue. People don't realize super glue was developed by the military to seal cuts and abrasions, pretty significant cuts. And so it's not toxic. And if you get a bad cut, like something you would need stitches for, and you're out in the field, you can put super glue on it, kind of hold it, and it will hold that together and keep you from bleeding too bad. And it's what it was intended for. But those are all good things to have, including matches. In today's day and age, we don't think about being lost in the wilderness or stuck somewhere, but that does happen. And so along those same lines, I don't bring a whole lot of foods, but having some kinds of snacks in there, this kind of thing, although the crackers, these probably need to get thrown away. These are probably, 3 or 4 trips in where I haven't eaten them because I don't usually. But what's really good, what I tend towards more now than this is like the, super high protein energy bar type thing, Cliff Bars and whatever. Can never have enough pens and pencils. They don't take up much room and you're always looking for them. Here we have some things like, these are little tablets that you can put in your water for, hydration type things, electrolytes and whatnot. A lot of different types, get them with the kind of the running gear, stuff like that. Also on those kinds of same thing is gum. And, not everybody does this, and gums or gummies that have caffeine in them. Which are good for if you are a coffee drinker or a caffeine drinker and you're not getting your normal caffeine. This can stave off a headache, but it also can give you a little extra energy when you're out there hiking. In Vietnam, they do not believe in switchbacks. It is straight up the hills and straight down. And I don't know that these kick in that fast, but it certainly gives you a little mental boost when, you're really flagging to take out this and chew on it a little bit. Also, helps with dry throat if you're running into that kind of problem. So, it's just kind of a easy thing to do. I don't use these anytime else. I don't use them at home ever, but it's nice to have them on the trips if you need them. I did before this trip to Vietnam, because I had been before and I knew how it was going to be. I spent about 6 weeks going to the gym every morning and being on the stair stepper, which is a hateful machine. But stair stepper, what are you going to do? Okay. I mentioned water. Again, this after friends of mine, people I travel with, got stuck out in nowhere. I started packing water purification tablets and some of these water filtration systems that'll, remove, I don't know how many whatevers, but you get it in here and you squeeze it through, and you can squeeze it right into a bottle that you have and are using and drink it. You're out in these areas where it looks like water should be clean. You're up in the side of a mountain, but there are people have animals. It's amazing what these cows and things, the steep slopes that they're on, and people above you and whatever in the water. Plus it's, sometimes just natural stuff that we are not used to. So having something to filter water is important. And I am, like I mentioned, I'm a heavy sweater, so I drink a lot. And so I always want to make sure that I can get water, because nothing will make you more miserable. Oh, I should have started with this, my little sweat rag. This is great. I use it for, getting the sweat off me. This is one of those quick dry towels. Actually use this as a full body towel. You can, if I get real hot and I want to jump in a stream, I can do that. I can rinse off with this, and these things, you rinse them out and you can take them and beat them against the trunk of a tree, and they really get 90-95% dry, and so they're perfect for that kind of thing. All right, I mentioned you're going to see a lot of bags. Trash bag. This is literally just in case I have so many collections of bags of plants that my backpack fills up. Then we can put them in a trash bag and tote them as well.
So not just bags, but bags for your bag.
Bags for your bags, yes. And you're going to see, I take things from one bag and put them into another bag. So it's a poncho, a little, 99-cent poncho that I've used 3 or 4 times. I hate wearing a rain jacket. I get so hot wearing a rain jacket that I feel like I'm just as wet inside as out. A poncho also allows you to throw it over your backpack, gives you a little more flexibility. You can pull in like a turtle and get under there and mess with your plants. So I don't always bring this. This is a sleeping bag and a silk liner for the sleeping bag.
Ooh la la.
Yeah. It helps with warmth, and it's much more comfortable. And if it's really hot, you can just use this and sleep on top of this. This is if we are going to be camping overnight out. We're not always doing that. And I don't collect where it's cold generally. So usually I want something very, very light. Often if we're going to be camping and we're going to need tents, we will purchase tents and have them shipped to our collaborators in the country. And then we'll just leave them with them. If they're botanists going out and doing field work, they can use those. They can use those with students and that kind of thing. And in the relative range of things, it's not terribly expensive, and it's very useful for them. And then if we're going back with them and going hiking, they'll have those tents as well. So we usually just the tarps and tents order there, but the sleeping bags are ours. So I don't always camp when I collect. Sometimes we're in a hotel every night and just driving out somewhere and collecting all day and coming back to a hotel. But in case we're not, that's also why I bring my Crocs. Crocs are very comfortable. People make fun of Crocs, but they're super comfortable. Either Crocs or flip-flops. And this is so that when I have finished going up and up and up and up the hills, and we finally get to a campsite, and the dogs there are barking, my feet are hurting, I can take off my shoes and socks and put on something. And these are light. I just clip these on the back of my backpack when we're hiking. They're super light. You do that with flip-flops too, but if you have to get up in the middle of the night, you're more likely to stub your toe on some rock or something than if you wear these. But either way, it feels a little bit like heaven to put on your Crocs at the end of the day. It's funny. I get boots and and I got wool socks and I'm hiking and whatever. And then there'll be one of our porters will be there and they'll be in little thin plastic shower flip-flops that are too small, and they're carrying our loads of stuff up to the campsite and just chatting and laughing and smoking a cigarette while I'm spending 6 weeks in the gym just so I could walk it. Speaking of walking, I bring walking sticks with me. They are great. They're great for a multitude of reasons. One, they're great to help keep your balance. I'm not 25 anymore, and every time I have to remember how to actually undo them. But they're great for hiking. I'll use either one or two depending on where we're going and how I'm feeling, but it's great for going downhill. It's great because I'm looking around and not paying attention to where my feet are, so that helps with that. It's great if it's real muddy and you've got to go somewhere, you can really put some weight on that thing and kind of go down. It's also great for reaching up into trees and pulling a branch down till you can reach it, or whacking fruit off a tree like a piñata if you need to. It's very, very helpful for that. Now, speaking of bringing stuff to our collaborators, this last time it was about a week or so before I was going to go to Vietnam, and I emailed our friend Ju there and asked if there was anything I could bring, and he said, yeah, a pole pruner would be great if you could bring a pole pruner pole saw. So I was like, okay. And I went and I found one that will get up to 30 feet. Like it's not an extendable one. Okay. It is screw in the different pieces. So it takes a little bit more to put together, but you can just bring a few, and it's in a bag that you can put on like a backpack. And let me tell you, it came in handy. We used it many, many times. Spare boot laces. You never know. Some of these things may or may not be included in my bags because of experience with catastrophic failures. For out collecting, pruners, we're off getting cuttings, getting samples. I use a little transplanting thing. This is hard plastic. I went to China once with a hori-hori knife, a Japanese soil knife. And, of course, I packed it in my checked bag to get there. But then we took a train in country, and I almost started an international incident by having this, big knife-looking thing in there. My colleagues still give me a hard time about that because we were almost marched to a police station about it with it. So hard plastic is great. If you've got check bags, the pruners work for that. They're a little iffier. They're pretty tough if they're not in checked baggage. I did have, my daughter found for me, the Leatherman tools. She found one that was pruners instead of pliers in the middle. So it had all these different tools plus pruners on there, and then it folds up into a little metal block, so it doesn't really show up as a knife at all. And that was great, and then I lost it somewhere. Oh, if we're gonna be out long, I bring an external battery pack, and I really like this one that my wife got for us because it's got the plug-ins attached to it. So I don't have an extra cord or anything like that. I just can plug this into my phone and go. They're all simple things, I will say on this last trip, we were all up at our campsite and several people wanted to borrow this and get a little juice. So unfortunately, leeches are often a thing. Now these they sell these as usually as snake gators,
Okay.
but they're good for leeches as well. You can just loop this over the back of your foot and go around. And you really want something that Velcros all the way up. That's better than snaps all the way up, because snaps leave big gaps. And then one that cinches around your calf. It doesn't make you leech proof, but it helps. It helps. And leeches are no fun, but they're not as bad as you would think.
Okay.
Other things, I like to have a light, even if I'm not planning on being out overnight. It helps to have some kind of headlamp or flashlight, because you may be stuck out later than you think if you take a wrong turn. I know I took a wrong turn on a pretty touristy area in China, and where I was supposed to get off the mountain after hiking down for about 5 or 6 miles, it was 17 miles because we missed our turn off to a parking lot where we could be picked up. So, that was an extra 11 miles that I wasn't planning on, and it happens. Whether you're camping overnight or not, some toilet paper, always good. You're in another country, you're drinking other people's water, doesn't hurt. Some little wet wipes in case you need those, or, you are like me and you're gross and sweaty and the sweat bees are covering you. I looked in Ecuador, when I was in Ecuador many, many years ago. We were camping, and the sweat bees, it looked like something out of, Guinness Book of World Records or Believe It or Not or something, where it's like the man with beard of bees. It looked like that, except for it was everywhere. They were sweat bees. And it was incredible. I've never seen anything like that. They didn't sting, and you'd be like, I'm just going to let them go. They're not going to bother me. But then after a while, you'd be like, I can't take it. But some kind of wet wipes and things, kind of wiping down your skin at least, can keep them off your face and your skin. All right, so that's most of the stuff that I'll take into the field with me when we're collecting. Now, while I'm collecting, say here, I've dug up an aspidistra in the field. I thought this was interesting. What I'll do is, I dig it up, I put it in a bag. I will write on the bag, this is the first plant I collected. So I'll write that number 1, and I'll write, aspidistra. Often I don't know any more than that when I collect it. We'll take it back and try to figure out what it is. When we're at a hotel. It's great when you have the collaborators in country, because often they can tell you. But sometimes they can say, maybe new species. So my backpack will get filled with these. I put all this stuff in my backpack, and then as I'm going, I'll be putting, these things in. But I put what I think the name of, I put the number, I make notes about it in my notebook, but I also take a picture with my iPhone. Your cellular phone has a feature, has all this data, EXIF data. I always just say it's external information. I don't know what it is. It has all kinds of data behind it, and it won't always, but 9 out of 10 pictures I take, like hiking up a mountain, 9 out of every 10 will have the latitude, longitude, and altitude on it. So where I used to carry GPS and get all that information, I had to wait for it to get 3 satellites do it. It happens automatically on my phone. So I take a picture of everything. And then if that 1 out of 10 doesn't have the data, I still know where it was in between the 2 other ones. So I got close enough. But I come back with all that data, and it can all be sucked directly out of my phone into our database. So you get it directly, which is great. So I make sure I do that as well. And over the course of 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes I forget what the first aspidistra I collected looked like. And this way I have it. I usually try and take the picture of it before I collect it, but sometimes you get so excited, you gotta get it. And the same goes with seed. When we collect seed, we do that same thing, take that picture so we know what's going on with it. So I've done that, I've collected it, put it in my pack, and then I'm going back to my hotel room. or the research station or wherever. And this is really my go bag. This stays in my closet and I replenish it after a trip, but I can just pick it up and throw it in my pack and take it. So what do we have in here? We have things to deal with plants and seed, clean them up, get them back to the U.S. So a lot of times we have seed that are have been in fleshy fruits that we've got to clean all the flesh off them. Think like a cherry or a viburnum or something like that. We have to clean that off. Sometimes that's easy. Sometimes that's difficult. It was great when I was collecting some loquats. You pop those in your mouth, work on some other plants, spit them out, throw another one in your mouth. Great. But after you clean them, you've washed them, you've cleaned all that flesh off, then they need to dry. So the two ways we do that are paper bags. We might put them all in paper bags. Or if we're going to be in a spot for a couple days, we'll take a handful, we'll take several layers of coffee filters and lay these out, and we'll write the names and the number on there. And so our hotel rooms will be these things all stacked, put out on the window ledges and desks and floors and the other bed or whatever. And then even if we have them in here, when we go to travel, we'll put them in paper bags. There are some other things that need to dry out. We collect Ericema corms, tubers, those kinds of things. They need to dry. So we can do them this way, but especially if I'm traveling a lot, I like these linen bags. These are tea bags, basically. And you put them in here and you can cinch them up and you can just let them dry in here. Same goes for some dry seeds, say hydrangeas, which have a seed head and it's all dry. We just collect one seed head off of there, one whole flower color, and you put it in a paper bag or one of these and just let it dry and then pull it out and dump it out, and it'll just be 20,000 seeds from that one seed head. But it has to dry before you can do that. You cannot bring seed back that has any flesh or anything on there. It has to be perfectly clean. Which, to do that, often with that seed, it involves sifting out the chaff. You separate the seed from the chaff. And so I have a couple different sized just kitchen sieves. There are some great things that you can get where they're different size and stackable around. You get them from science-ware companies. Those are all great. This works just fine. You can tell I've been using this one for many, many years. When you're going to pack your seeds up, it can sometimes be helpful to have something like this. I used to just kind of do it on a paper plate, but somebody I was collecting with had one of these. This is a pill counter that pharmacies use, where you slide all the pills off here into whatever, and then put the rest over here, and you can dump them into the big jar or whatever. I put this in here because it can be kind of useful. I really don't use that very much, but sometimes if we have maybe a limited number of seeds, we only could get 30 or 40 seeds from something, and we have 2 or 3 different people who want them. Sometimes it's easy to kind of separate them out that way. So bags again. So we use these, Ziploc type bags for collecting in the field. But when we're shipping the plants back, we want to make sure everything is as uniform, as readable, as just easy to deal with as possible for the inspectors, both the inspectors, say, in Vietnam, and then the inspectors in the U.S. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. So we have started, and some of the collaborators I work with have started using these, what we call finishing bags. We don't collect with these because they're a little bit pricier. But these finishing bags all have this kind of nice white square that you can write on. They're sturdy. There's these standard sizes. And so we get them in multiple sizes for the multiple things we collect. 5x9, 4x6, 2x3. And after we have cleaned our seed, after we've gotten all the chaff off, all the flesh off, and they've dried, we put them in these seed packets and we write on there the name for each thing. So you say this aspidistra, I collected this in the wild. This is how it comes back into my hotel room. Although it always seems to be raining when I'm collecting plants. So this would be muddy and wet and kind of gross. And we would clean it. Ideally outside with a hose, but on occasion in a hotel room. Vietnam is nice. They had that French influence, so they have bidets, except for they have kind of low dollar bidets. They're usually like the little things from your sprayer from your sink, but attached to the water source. And so those are great for spraying and cleaning them off. So that aspidistra would look like this after we cleaned it. We get all the soil off. Another great thing, one of the modern conveniences of plant hunters at hotels is almost anywhere you go in the world, they have little toothbrushes there for you in case you forgot yours. And so those are perfect for scrubbing the roots and everything off on these things. But you got to get all the soil off. And then we'll put them in, the smallest bag that they'll fit well. This is probably right on the line between this size and a larger size. We also put then just a little bit. This is actually probably more than I would do. I would probably really just put, maybe this much sphagnum moss. And this is sphagnum moss that we bring dry, get it wet, and then squeeze the ever-living whatever out of it to get as much water out as possible and just put it in there. We don't wrap the roots. We don't do anything like that. We just put it in there to keep moisture, a little bit of moisture in there. There are some seeds that cannot dry out. Magnolia seeds, camellia seeds, oak seeds, but you're not allowed to bring in oak seeds even with permits. They'll dry out. They can never be allowed to dry out or else they won't be any good. So they have to go in some damp sphagnum as well. And so then I put the name. We figured out this aspidistra was Aspidistra eladior, say. We've got our collection, the one. This is the first one we collected. So, and we'll usually put a code so we know this is Mark Weathington, Vietnam, 2025. This is the first collection, 01. If I'm with other people, I'm with Blake Wentley here, we would do MWV. No, we would do WW, Weathington Wentley, V25001, or something we agreed on in advance so that if he goes and is propagating this and growing it and I'm growing it, we know it's the exact same plant. And we'll do that with seed as well as we split it up. Some people like to put their own numbers on there, and that's fine, but it gets to confusion. You're like, is that our 001 aspidistra or, and it gets tricky. So we like to do that. But you see also, when I pulled this out, there were two pieces. It had been one piece, but we cut it in half. So I have ×2 on here. And when we go to get things inspected, we have to put exactly how many plants there are. We cannot put just this is one and have two in there, even though it was one and we cut it in half to make it fit better. It is two plants, and they care about this deeply. You can get away with it saying that there's 3 plants. They don't like that much, but by goodness, don't say there's only 2. Okay, mentioned the sphagnum moss. This is how we get the sphagnum moss. It's these little dried let's see, I got one that's open. Little dry boards. Actually, for that last aspidistra, I just broke a piece off. This will expand a lot. And it's super light. You break off a piece, let it soak in a sink or something like that, and then just grab out a little piece and squeeze it out and put it in. Less water is better than more water. I've had plants sit for 6 weeks and come through in pretty good condition by being in this little bit of sphagnum. Oh, those of you who joined earlier, we were looking at little tubs of fern spores. Fern spores are really hard to get out of plastic bags. Static electricity just hold in there, and you got to mess with them. So I like to put them in envelopes. I put them in these little glassine envelopes. I'll seal them up, or actually, I'm usually with these that I'm using, I don't even seal them up. But I'll take these and I will put them inside a plastic envelope, because those little spores will get out through the seams in here a little bit. So if I put it in that plastic envelope, it keeps it all in there, but almost all the spore will be in the glassine envelope, and we can not worry about the other stuff. More pens and labels and things like that. As we've gone to these finishing bags, the labels have become less important. We used to write the name on the label and put it in the bag with the plant, but really we do it all on the outside now. I'll often have a magnifying glass or a little loop. I actually find this to be easier when I'm working indoors. Sometimes I'll bring the little like jeweler's loop type thing in the field with me, but this is often useful for looking at the foliage and things, which is why when we collect the plants in the wild, even if it's like a handful of seed, we'll always break off a tip with some leaves and put it in the bag with us, so we can, when we get back, we have the actual material at hand to try and figure out what exactly it is. And we can also, at that point, get good photographs. In the field, you can get good photographs, but laying down on a flat surface with good light, you can get it better. And then that way we have that to look at later as our plants are growing. But this sometimes is useful for looking at the edges of the leaves. Oh yes, this is, marginally ciliate and that kind of thing. Just more bags in there. Okay. Getting down to a few other things. Looking at trying to figure out what stuff is. Some of the people I collect with think I'm crazy because I often bring books with me. This is a checklist to the plants of northern Vietnam, and doesn't have photos or anything, but say I collect a, let me get something that people might know. I collect a Schneebelia, for example.
Which we all know.
Schneebelia. But I'll see that there's only one listed in the checklist of northern Vietnam. Now there's no description. It does say where it's distributed, so we know it's Ho Binh is where it's distributed, where you can find it. But I know that most likely, if I collected this Schneebelia, that it's going to be that species. Whereas, say, I collect a salvia, which we probably, many of us know, that's a sage. I can say, okay, this was a blue flowered one. I know it isn't Salvia coccinea. I know that. That's our red sage. Could be Salvia farinaceae, but I know that plant's got, fuzzy leaves, and there's Salvia miltio-rhiza and plebia. I don't really know those. Scapiformis, Sanchifolia, splendens. I know it isn't splendens because that's red. So now I can look up these other salvias and see if they match mine. And it could be that it's none of those. These are none of the, once it's printed, it's out of date. That's the way things are. But this gives me a good way to at least get a handle on what I might be looking at.
And that's just a good tip for plant people generally when they're traveling. Helen Krause, the former undergraduate coordinator in the horticulture department, she says if you go somewhere, the first thing you should do is buy a book of the flora where you're at, because you're gonna be going crazy trying to figure out what everything is, but like it's already in a book. You can look it up and it helps.
Oh, listen, I'm going to tell you another one. This is game changer. Is Google reverse image search.
No kidding.
Holy cow. Now, it isn't perfect. Don't take it for granted. But if it's something in a garden, like, if you see something walking by in a garden that has a flower or a fruit on it, take a picture and do a Google image search. And it can, it'll definitely can get you in the right neighborhood.
Sure.
Now, if you're in the middle of Vietnam, not necessarily, but sometimes you look at something, you just scratch your head. I don't know what family this is. And it'll help you. It'll, give you something that's obviously wrong. Be like, oh yeah, Apocynaceae. Sure. Yeah, maybe that's right. Let me look at that and figure it out. This is one that's a little bit, Bat Dai Sun mountain area. This is the flora for that specific area. So when we were in Bat Dai Sun, this was, something that I used widely. Now, we were also with one of the authors, Kang Sen Win, but Kang, who helped write this. So often we just said, Kang, what's this? Kang, what's this? This is great because this also has images for a lot of them, a lot of the plants, which was helpful. He was more helpful than the book, though. All right, I am terrified of glasses breaking or being lost or whatever on a trip. So I actually just got these glasses today, picked them up today. Sorry, Blake, that was why I was late for our meeting. So as soon as I do that, I put my last pair, if they're still decent, put them in a thing, and I put them in my travel thing. Now these I do take my spare glasses on any of my trips, but now I'll throw away my old glasses, but I always keep that last pair with me because I don't want to be stuck somewhere and not be able to see. And I don't want to spend, even if I'm in the US traveling and I could get another pair at, whatever, Lens Crafters or something, I don't want to spend my vacation sitting in a, waiting on glasses.
Yeah.
All right. Many of these things you can get in another country. Many of these things you can do without, but you can get plastic bags. If you can't get sphagnum, you can get like paper towels or something like that. You can get coffee filters or tea bags or paper bags. You can get that. Any of that stuff you get. Here is what you cannot leave behind. Cannot leave behind. This is your permit to bring plants into the U.S. Now, the country you're going to, this is why you have partners, so that they can get whatever permits or permissions in that country to collect. So that's the partner does that for you. Now, to bring plants back into the U.S., plants or seed, you need to have, if it's plants, they must be inspected where you've collected them, in the country you've collected them, by the folks, the government entity in that country, which is why I can't go to Korea and collect plants. They will not inspect the plants. They won't let me collect plants. Even if I could get permission, though, they won't give me an inspection. So I can't go there. It's not worth it to go collecting plants unless I can make some inroads with some folks. One of my colleagues has spent a long time with the Botanical Survey of India working on being able to not just collect the plants, but get the permits, get the phytosanitary certificate so he can bring plants back. So to do that, though, you have to have the permit. So you get your plants, you have all your permissions, you've got them all in their lovely little bags like this. It used to be you had a permit and it would say that this is good for all allowable taxa from allowable countries. And that meant if I could bring in Aspidistra from Vietnam, I was good. If I was in, Brazil and had an Aspidistra, although that would be a very interesting thing since Aspidistra doesn't grow in South, but if Aspidistra from Brazil was not allowed, I couldn't bring it in. They've changed the system now. Now you have to list every plant you're bringing and the country. So if I go to collect Aspidistra and I do it in China, in Taiwan, in Japan, in Vietnam, in India, I have to have each one of those countries listed on my permit. Luckily, the online system has made it easy if you can find the spot to do it, which is not easy always. Is made it easy to add something on. I was looking at this, and surprisingly enough, I did not have Aspidistra from Vietnam on here. So I I added it on. This is not actually from Vietnam. This is from the garden. So in country, in Vietnam, they will go through and make sure that the plant you have is on the list, is on your list, and that it's allowable to bring in. And so my full permit is 101 pages. Technically, I need to have this whole thing in with my plants. I don't always do that. I'll just do the lists of plants, and this other stuff is kind of boilerplate. But I will take the list of plants, because I also have to have a printed list of all the plants that are in my box to send, have, 001 aspidistra, 2 of those, And really what they want, they would rather, even if I collect 8 different aspidistra, if all aspidistra from Vietnam are allowed in, they would rather me do 8 aspidistras. And I can put them in separate bags with my number on there, but they're all together and it's 8 total aspidistra, even if it's 8 different ones. So, and seed, the same thing. You can do a separate permit for seed. There is a permit called small lots of seed. And with that, I don't need the seed to be inspected in the country. So if I could have permission to collect seed in Korea, I could collect seed, not get them inspected in the country, and mail them back to the US for inspections. Since I'm getting the plants inspected, I just usually do it all on one permit at one time rather than 2 different permits. It makes things easier for my collaborators. Now, once things have been inspected in the country, and they look at them to make sure they're allowed into the US, they look at them to make sure that there are no insects, diseases, anything like that. Once they're allowed, you put them in a box, you ship them, and they must have a green and yellow label. These are actually expired labels, but must have a green and yellow label that must match your permit. This will make sure it gets delivered to an inspection station. Okay. If they, for whatever reason, don't get sent to an inspection station, I one time had with a mailing, like something that the post office in the country did that mostly covered this green and yellow label. It wound up not going to the inspection station, went through customs, and customs says plants are not allowed in. And I said, but I have permits, it's all in there, it needs to go to the inspection station. They said, that's APHIS, we're customs, you're not allowed to bring plants in.
Oh, geez.
So it actually worked out okay. It got sent back to Taiwan, to the hotel. I had them send it back to the hotel I stayed at. I emailed this to them again, they put it on again, and it came back. 8 weeks later, luckily it was all seed. I will also email my list of plants. Actually, even before the inspection in Vietnam, I will email my whole list of plants to the inspection station, the U.S. Animal Plant Health Inspection Services, and let them look at the list and see if they see any problems. Because sometimes I've missed something that they say, oh, you can't bring that in. Or if every aspidistra is allowed in from Vietnam, every single one, except for there's one that for whatever reason is not. Maybe it's endangered there. Maybe it's a host to some weird disease. If I have that one, I can't send an aspidistra to them. I have to send them Aspidistra elatior. I have to identify this so it makes sure it isn't that one other Aspidistra. It can take days after you're doing all this to get through all of this part. We always have to have 3-4 days at the end of a collecting trip at least to make sure everything's clean, everything makes it through inspections, everything gets into the mail. So all of that has happened. You put your green and yellow label on. You've been in touch with the Animal Plant Health Inspection Services. You've gotten the phytosanitary certificate from the Vietnamese authorities. When all that's done, you put your import permit into a bag, your whole 101 pages into a bag. You put that into your box with your collected plants and seeds. You address it to the inspection station in the US. You put the green and yellow label on the outside, somewhere very obvious, and it gets shipped to the inspection station. There, it's out of your hands. This is one of the reasons I like to send a list to the inspectors and say, here's what I have. And then I'll email, we've mailed it. It looks like it should arrive such and such time. And then they will inspect it. Just think, this stuff has spent time inside a little plastic bag for, sometimes weeks, but even just days. If there's a fungal issue with it, you're going to see it. If it's, any problems, they're going to see it. So they get to tell you, see if it's really clean or not. We have found that the easier you make it on them, so they can go through, they can pretty much inspect this without without unpacking it, that it goes much quicker for you. They really like that. And they'll be helpful rather than a hindrance. Once they get through and inspect that, they may send the whole box on to you. If it's all good, they may say, we found a disease in there. We found an insect in there. In which case, they may dump the entire box, incinerate it. Or they may pull out that one bag where they saw an insect and incinerate that and send everything else on. It's really, they can do whatever they want. And there is no real recourse until after the fact. And these offices are set up to inspect, big loads of cut flowers for floral industry, or, a container of oranges or whatever. They're not really set up to be looking at 150 oddball little things. And so we try to make it work with them as best as possible, because it takes, a lot of time for what's to them less important than some of these other big commercial things. So we try to understand where they're coming from and work with them. But if everything's been done correctly, it will show up back at your place at some point. And then you go through the whole process of taking that plant that's been sitting in a bag for the past month and trying to keep it alive. And that's a whole nother thing. But we have pretty good success rate with doing that.
Cool. That was awesome, Mark. We are doing amazing on time, just because time is infinite and we have as much of it as we need. Yeah, I was going to say, I probably went real long. We're only a little bit long. There were 2 questions that were very good, so I think we will do those 2 questions. We'll do the business question first. Jared asks, how do you narrow down areas you're going to? Are you typically narrowing down locations on something you're looking for specifically, or do you just go in looking for anything interesting?
Okay, there's 2 pieces to that. One, if it's just an area we think we really would like to collect, and we look at, like say if we're in Southeast Asia, we look at altitude. We have to get up to a certain height for things to have cold hardiness at all. I always say I like that subtropical to temperate zone where it's kind of going from one to the other. That's where I think there's the most interesting things to find that haven't been brought in. But also, we will often be going for a specific purpose. This last time in Vietnam, there was a new magnolia that was just discovered, just named very recently. And there was some question about whether it was a good taxon or not, because somebody else went to look for it and wasn't sure they found it. They went in the fall, but the fruit that they found on this magnolia was not right. It wouldn't have been So we were going back in the spring to see if we could find it in flower and see what it was. And we did find it. And so that was great for our partners there, because this is a brand new species. Don't know where it is. The 3 original spots where it was found, we found it at the very first spot. It had been cut down at a second spot. We didn't find it at the third spot, but we found 2 new locations, one near the first one and one that was quite a bit further off. So we're going there to find that, but we collect interesting things around there.
Nice. Cool. Okay. And then a fun question. Sandy wants to know, how many botanizing trips would you estimate you've been on? And do you have a favorite country or memorable story?
How many have I been on? Maybe 18 or 20.
Okay.
I love Taiwan. I love the plants there. They do really well for us. So that's a big one for me. Japan, when I did a wild collecting, not nursery buying trip, but a wild collecting trip, was really great because we were out in the field with Mr. Yamaguchi, one of the great plants people who recently passed away, and Akira Shibamichi, another one of the great nurserymen of Japan, kind of elder statesman there. And so it was fascinating to be out with them, even though neither spoke a bit of English. But all of them are different. I really enjoyed Vietnam. I'd love to keep going. I don't know that I'll be able to because the jury's still out on how much the woody things are good. The herbaceous stuff has been good, but as the woody stuff has been kind of hit or miss. And we are trying to bring plants back for landscape use, breeding use. So, but I really enjoy those colleagues a lot in Vietnam.
Sure. And I love the woods of Japan. Like, it's just
the woods of Japan are amazing. Yeah.
It's like seeing a camellia growing in its like native, like that's crazy. That's wild.
I always tell people, I was like, it is so cool to see something new that you've never seen before.
Yeah.
But when I happened upon a paperbark maple growing on this mountainside with a waterfall in full fall color, I was like, that's a paperbark maple. I've grown dozens of paperbark maples, but there it is in the wild.
Yeah.
That same thing with you going out and seeing Japanese maples. It's just the understory tree.
Oh God, yeah, no.
I mean, and
they're
in
so
the
good.
fall.
In the fall, the one section where I lived near Takamatsu, all of the Japanese maples, they all had green stems and yellow fall color, which like it's such an amazing combination. And normally you want the reds and the oranges for fall color, but just like the simple yellow and just the blanket of leaves on the ground and just the texture, it's so good.
Yeah, I love doing it. Went to Uruguay last year, and that was going to that first question. Went there because I was like, we grow a couple of plants from Uruguay that do really well, woody plants, not just all the bulbs. I was like, I don't know this place. It'd be great to go. We did a short trip down there, worked with an amazing person down there. It was incredible, and might be worth another trip or another trip to southern Brazil, Paraguay, northern Argentina, the surrounding areas as well. So it's a
great, big, beautiful world out there. There is always more to see and discover.
Exactly. And I want to see it all.
No kidding. Awesome. Well, this was fantastic, Mark. Thank you so much for going through all this and sharing with this, the ins and outs, and then a bit of the wisdom and the know-how. It's always appreciated.
Well, you are very welcome. And I could talk for another, hour on this kind of thing.
No kidding. Well, thank you, everybody, for joining us today on the Midweek Program. We will be back next week. We will have our curator, Dennis, is going to be talking about garden weeds. So that should be useful information for everybody. So we will see you all next time. Y'all take care.